All right, this is section 3 of chapter 2. This is macromolecules. This is what we now start building to get to a cell. All these macromolecules come together. This gives us a cell, okay? First of all, what macromolecules are simply, it just means giant molecules. Okay, macromolecules means giant molecules. These molecules are made up of a process that is called polymerization. So macromolecules are just simply macromolecules, so giant molecules that are made from polymerization. Okay, a whole bunch of polymers put together that gives us our macromolecules. All right, the smallest unit of the macromolecules are monomers. Mono meaning one, so that's just one. Put a whole bunch of monomers together, gives us polymers. Okay, so monomers will join together to perform polymers. Hence the name polymerization that goes with the forming of macromolecules. And later on, the monomers are what the basic building blocks are. So it's what makes up all these macromolecules. Okay? All right, the first macromolecule, there are 4 of these. All right, these 4 macromolecules are essential to all life. Now, if it has any type of life or has had life before, it will have these 4 macromolecules. The first one, of course, is carbohydrates. You can just write down carbs. Everybody knows what a carb is. Okay, carbohydrates is your first macromolecule. They're made up of this 1-to-1 ratio right here of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So it's carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen are your ratios. That's how you can kind of tell what a macromolecule is. Macromolecules are sugars, and when you eat a lot of sugar, what happens? You get fat, but what else? Sugar gives you short-term, real quick energy. Okay, so carbohydrates give you short-term energy that help produce functions, so on and so forth. Okay, the basic building block or the monomer of a carbohydrate is a monosaccharide. Mono meaning one, saccharide meaning sugar. So one sugar makes up a carbohydrate. So monosaccharides are the basic building blocks. Glucose is the simplest form. And the formula for glucose, as you can see, we're talking about a 1-to-1 ratio. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 carbons. Okay, our oxygens 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is those as well. And then we look at our hydrogens 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So our 1-to-1 ratio of carbon to hydrogen to oxygen. That's when you see a structure, that's how you know it's carbohydrate, by seeing that formula. Okay, so basic building blocks of carbohydrates, monosaccharides, its function is it gives us short-term energy. All right, the next one is lipids. The next macromolecule are lipids. And lipids are here to store energy. So carbohydrates, short-term energy, lipids are long-term energy. And fats, oils, waxes, you can see right here, those are all examples, all those are lipids. Okay, but the main thing, lipids, long-term energy, stores up. Very good, move on. Okay, lipids are usually these huge molecules made up of a whole bunch of carbons and hydrogens and oxygens. They're always very, very big. The basic building block, though, of lipids are fatty acids. Okay, fatty acids are the basic building block of lipids. Eat too many lipids, you're going to get a fatty acid. That's a good way to remember it. Eat too many lipids, you're going to get a fatty acid. Okay?
You're a regular comedian.
Two types of lipids are saturated and unsaturated. So saturated fat, unsaturated fat. If you have a single bond in there, saturated fat, all you need to know, saturated or bad. Okay, saturated fat, the ones that are bad for you, they're the ones that are solids at room temperature. So butter and that type of stuff, lard, Crisco, not very good for you. Unsaturated fats are the ones that are better for you, so they're good. And these are liquids at room temperature, so fish oil, canola oil, olive oil, stuff that's okay, excuse me, to cook with, not as bad for you, are unsaturated. Next one's nucleic acids. What makes nucleic acids different is that they have nitrogen and phosphorus. They also have hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon as well, but they have nitrogen and phosphorus in them as well. And they are made up of the monomer, and it's called nucleotides. So nucleic acids, the basic building block of the monomer, are nucleotides that should be pretty easy to remember. Pretty good? Nucleotides made up of 3 parts. Okay, all I want you to write down right now is that they are made up of a sugar, a phosphate, and a base. A sugar, a phosphate, and a base. That's what nucleotides are made up of. This becomes very important to us when we start talking about DNA and RNA. Okay, a sugar, base, and a phosphate group. Sugar, base, and a phosphate group. A sugar, base, and a phosphate group. A little ditty for you to remember nucleotides. Okay, sugar, base, and phosphate group. Don't forget it. Sugar, base, phosphate group. What's the nucleotide made of, Lucas?
Sugar, phosphate, and a base.
Good. Sugar, base, and a phosphate group. Alright? Good way to remember that. Like I said, it becomes very important to us later on. The last macromolecule, the fourth and final, are proteins. Proteins are made up of a monomer that's called amino acids. Okay, amino acids make up proteins. Proteins have a whole bunch of functions as far as structure, repair, helping build stuff, fingernails, toenails, hair, all made of protein, muscle made of protein, all those things that help structurally.
So basically what is amino acids for, or is it?
What now?
What is amino acids again?
It's the building block of protein. It's the monomer.
Okay.
Alright, one thing to remember about amino acids or proteins is they have this thing, or 2 things. One is called an amino group, the other one is a carboxyl group, or COOH is a way to remember what carboxyl is. So here's an example down here. You see, here's your amino group with your nitrogen and your 2 hydrogens on one end. Your carboxyl group is on the other end. Serine, here's your carboxyl, there's your amino acid group. So when you see that on an SOL test, you see it on a test, as long as you can go in and find this double bond here, this oxygen, or the nitrogen with 2 H's on it, you know it's going to be a protein or amino acid. So So a carboxyl group is COOH with an L bond to one of the O's, and the amino group is your NH2.